Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for watching and all that stuff. My name's Luke, and this is an introduction to my friend group's D&D campaign. While I'll be posting our campaign on this channel and live streaming it on Twitch, I just thought it would be the best idea to make a video to give you some background on both my character and the campaign. I joined the campaign when the others were in about their 20th session, and we just finished our 12th, so you'll definitely be joining us in media res, as they call it. So let me introduce my character to you, as you'll be watching it from my perspective. Much like my character Vivo is new to the group, you'll be too. When Vivo joined the group, he really had no clue of the quest that the party is going on, so you'll have a bit of that in common. And also, like, Critical Role did this, so, like, you know, it's gotta work sorta, right? Alright, so let's start by looking at Vivo's backstory and getting to the point where he meets up with the group. Oh, and if you're one of the party members, don't peek at this, alright? Just ask Vivo his background stuff, he'll share it with you. Another note is that this campaign has been lovingly created by our Dungeon Master Carlo. That being said, our game's lore isn't like 100% book accurate, and your games don't have to be either. We love our game, and it suits what we play, and it works in the lore works in the case of our world, so don't stress too much about all that. So Vivo's story begins in the Sword Coast and focuses in on the small town of Tribor, here in the middle of the map. As a child, Vivo grew up with large shoes to fill, as his father was a very talented physician and his mother was the town's herbalist apothecary. Together, they were able to use their skills to help remedy illness and mend the wounds around his town. Vivo could see the good that his parents would do, yet he could also see their limitations. See, as Vivo was around these patients in need, he would sadly see the terrible pain and incurable illness that they would be suffering. He would sit at the desk in his parents' waiting room, and watch the families cry, be in turmoil over their beloved family members failing to return to their side. He couldn't help but feel that life was unfair in this way, and that he wished he could do better. He could see how hard his parents would work, and yet there would still always be loss. After being exposed to this for so long, Vivo found himself walking around the outskirts of town and found himself at a church dedicated to Hades, where he began to learn about the god of the afterlife, how Hades is one that values both life and death and the balance between it, to only take a life when it's their time to come. As his service at the church moved from community service to a much more dedicated role, Vivo's parents showed a kind of disdain for the church, wishing their child would pursue medicine in a much more practical way. However, Vivo wanted to learn to prolong everyone's life. Through Hades, he began to learn ways to perform small miracles and extend life, and after some time, Vivo became a cleric to the church and became the resident groundkeeper. He was very fulfilled. Healing through his prayers, he would still feel very powerless. He would often have to use his massive shovel that he carries to bury those that he couldn't save. His quiet contemplations in the graveyard led him to realize that, if possible, he could try to bring loved ones back from the dead to reunite with their families. After multiple attempts and bringing back villagers, Hades saw that Vivo was bringing back these villagers as husks of what they once were, as his powers were not totally harnessed at this point. As a punishment, he banished Vivo to the Feywild, where the reach of his powers would be lessened. While spending an unknown time in the Feywild, Vivo's skills grew more and more, yet he was still stuck in the other plane. He became much better at resurrecting the dead. He began to ponder the idea that if everyone could come back from the dead after a peaceful death, then families could live with one another with no more loss. He wonders if it's easier to spend eternity together in life or in death. His desire to hone his craft led him to a massive desert in the Feywild. At this point, Vivo stood at 5'7". He has dark, dirty, messy hair hanging over his furrowed brow and pale skin. His large pack causes him to hunch over. Even in the desert sun, he wears a large black cloak with a black wool collar. This covers black scale mail with a black ram's head in the center, In his hand is his large shovel, which in and of itself is dark and worn, the handle of which is a carved oxen ram. His legs are covered in black chain. As a thumbnail would sort of suggest, I kind of picture him as Robb Stark with a big shovel. By his side, Vivo travels with a black female ram named Capra. She's been with him a long time. She has short nub horns and ruby red eyes. She's very sweet and often just kind of seems to turn up, even if she gets left behind. She makes for a good travel companion, often carrying his bag or will happily be used as a pillow. In this desert, Vivo sensed a great amount of undead and followed it, raising a couple skeletons that he found along the way. And after some searching, he sensed an incredible amount of undead below his feet in the sand and began digging with his undead, eventually falling into a large underground tomb right on top of our party. After getting through the tomb, Vivo had a chance to formally meet the group and learned that they were called the Revengers. The group was made up of a Leonin barbarian named Aramaz, Bale, a monk with a dragon arm, Ferwin, a ranger with a matching dragon arm, Ejiofor, a magic user who is known deep in the party for his puns, and Elikish, a very roguish ranger. And after praying on it and hearing that his group would lead him out of the Feywild, Vivo joined the group. So now to catch up on the story of where we are now. And obviously I'm not going to recap every single fight, every single little detail, or every single time we get a magic item or something like that. That would take forever. So I'm just going to hit on like the large story points. The group led Vivo out of the desert and to a friend in the Feywild, who in turn led them to a secret art gallery that unlocked from a key that they found in the tomb when he met them. Inside this art gallery was the goddess Picasso, a clairvoyant who can paint visions of the future. We learned that Desdin, her brother, I believe, the god of destiny, has had Omonitor, the god of time, and another god that is unknown, enter his body. So 3 gods are in this kind of same vessel, and we're tasked with getting them out. After exploring another cave to find our next lead, the Revengers met a stranger, a person draped in various cloths and fabric, unable to see their actual body. The person said that they could get us out of the Feywild, and in trade, asked us to give up part of ourselves. We agreed and performed a ceremony. Vivo gave up 2 letters in his name, leaving him to be called V. Aramaz became Erez, and Bale became B, and yes, the similarities between V and B were definitely one to overcome. Elikish gave up his sense of taste, causing most food to make him feel nauseous. Ferwin gave up her sense of cold, and I believe Ejiofor was constantly thirsty. After the ceremony, this robed figure gave us a drink and we all woke up in a stream that the Revengers had been to in the past, back in the natural plane. We learned upon waking that we could get these parts of us back by completing a quest during the next solar eclipse, which actually hasn't happened yet, so that's something to look forward to. Our group made its way to Neverwinter, and upon arrival, V celebrated happily to be back in the normal world, but he realizes that Neverwinter looks much more aged than he remembers. He doesn't know how long he's been gone. While there, a bard named Han met up with us and told us about an ominous note that the group had found, telling us about a cult of Xi, and the cult of the green dragon Xi, which B had deep ties to. We headed to bed that night and left the following morning, but only a little while later, the body of Han had been found terribly mutilated in our rooms. We were framed, and then sadly, instead of working with the guards, the group attacked them, lit the inn on fire, and even killed some of the guards. Most of us escaped briefly, but Ferwin got taken prisoner by a man named Hollowcut, a terrible captain of the Neverwinter Guard. See, Ferwin was previously a high captain here as well, but Hollowcut was one of the biggest reasons that she left. A young man named Lord Brahm got her out of prison and gave her a blue-tinted monocle that would let her see many hidden things. when we all met up kind of in the ruckus of being chased. She used it to help the party escape out through a hole in the city's wall that could only be seen through this magical lens. As we entered the hole, the party fell down kind of a deep magical slide and passed out along the way. And then actually out of game, Carlo wasn't able to play DM us for the next couple weeks, so we had kind of a dream sequence. And though that's not canon, we may be continuing those in the future, so it's kind of a heads up if Carlo's never available. We sometimes do like dream type situations, so that might happen. Okay, back to the canon stuff. We found ourselves sliding through an illusory wall on the beach. Waking up, V got to his feet first and saw a bunch of snake people attacking these wild wolves and feeding on like a large beach whale. As we were finishing up that fight, a group of guards showed up, and this time we were much more willing to follow their orders, and so we got into a kind of prisoner cart that they had. We were taken north to a small fishing town and told by some guards that they were going to help us, and eventually some guards that the party knew showed up and they said that they would get us out. We devised a plan to go back into town and make sort of a large reveal and act that our identities had been stolen by this group that got chased out of town. While all this was going on, Eris was having visions of Hades through Capra, ones that only he could see. The visions said that he had to give up his life in order to help the party's plans proceed. That night, our group was raided, and we got our butts absolutely kicked, during which Eris went down and was actually killed, but his body was kind of caught ablaze and he was revived back, but this time as a human. The next morning we found that our friend Sildar, who was helping us create and devise this plan, had been kidnapped by some raiders. I used sending, and we got a vague location of where he had been taken, which was somewhere out to sea. We took out a folding boat and got onto the ocean. While we were sailing, we came across a body nailed to a board with symbols of the dragon god Null, a god of death and undead, but chaotic evil with cult-like members. We came to a large portal in the ocean and sailed through it, coming out into a large cave system. And after sailing through some of these caves, we reached a kind of cliff face and climbed up. And it was then the group realized they were in Wave Echo Cave, one that they seem to constantly return to. Wave Echo Cave actually holds the Forge of Spells, a place that was created 500 years ago and was built to create magic for all races. The forge had been ransacked by the cult of G, and the kind of large magical crystal components from the main room had been stolen. Upon leaving the cave through the front this time, we saw a town with fire coming off of it, and we followed it down to the town of Phandalin, a place that the party had also been in the past. The town had smoke throughout, and a mansion on kind of the outskirts was up in flames. However, everything, including the fire, smoke, and the people there, were all seemed slowed and hardly moving in time. Alright, so I know that was all kind of complex, but this part even gets a little harder, so try and keep up. Upon reaching the mansion over in Phandalin, an old wizard, Ejiofor's past teacher, Oliver Drake, had come to reclaim Ejiofor as his student. We learned that the bandits that we were chasing did this, and that more cultists were on their way. When Oliver Drake tried to forcibly take Ejiofor, we evaded him and went to the town square and fought off some of these cultist members. However, Oliver Drake kind of poofed Ejiofor, Elicus, and Erez into another time, a different dimension, into a labyrinth full of minotaurs in a battle that they had fought in the past, but only partially, and so they were sent there to finish it. While they were there, they fought alongside a lost party member, Finn. After these two separate fights concluded, we all found our way into this worn bag of holding in this other dimension, the bag that Finn had fell into long ago and was lost. The party crawled inside and appeared tiny amongst all this adventuring equipment that was inside of it. We found a magical item inside this giant magic monster made of mayonnaise at the bottom of the bag. That's kind of edgy force humor for you. And the bag began to rip open. We all ran to get out. However, Finn was stuck, as this was kind of his destiny. Ejiofor fell into the abyss that was ripped open through the bag, and B, upon his last leap to leave the bag, caught a loose thread and was unwound, plummeting into the abyss as well. So that was a very sad episode for us. After leaving the labyrinth, it took some time, but we eventually made it back towards Phandalin, getting our folding boat along the way. And on our way there, V heard a strange ticking noise. When he turned, he saw a mechanical construct with multiple limbs and a large glass dome head filled with smoke. V knew it had to be a servant of Labelus Enoreth, a god that guards the continuity of time. Upon getting back to Phandalin, we realized that the people didn't really remember us. I spent like 200 gold when we got there to help build this manor in the name of Hades this time. The person that we donated to was named Sister Garel, a patron of Timora, the goddess of judgment. Her assistant, Diana, was next to her, and that is Brandon's new character, as B was lost in the bag. Unfortunately, the player who played Ejiofor was no longer able to play with us, but that did mean that Diana joined our group. We determined while we were here in Phandalin that we had gone back in time before our crimes in Neverwinter were committed, and that our best chance of clearing our name would be go back to Neverwinter. As we traveled, we could constantly hear this ticking noise, so much so that we were unable to sleep, leaving us exhausted, sleepless for multiple days, multiple fights with these multi-limbed constructs. And upon reaching the city, we were exhausted and spell-slotless. As we got there, Labelus, the god of continuity, met us at the town gate. He gave us enough leeway to attempt to remedy the situation, and that leads us to the episode I'm about to post tomorrow. It's a good one. Basically, our party has to stop one of each of our forms from existing, as having, multiple V's on the same planet is against continuity. So feel free to follow the rest of our story. We usually play on Friday nights, or maybe every other Friday night. So come watch us live on Twitch. And then if you can't make it, I'll probably post it here the following day. The VOD will be available over there as well. So thanks for watching and all that stuff. I hope you enjoy the game. Peace.